I'll try to not make this a political rant. We shall see how easy this goes, but whatever. So, according to something that I read the other day, Elon Musk is quoted, allegedly, according to what I read, as saying that Doge, I believe, during their investigations, and feel free to opine on what you believe or opine on what you want, excuse me, about Doge. I think the idea was good. Maybe the execution of Doge in and of itself was a little poor, but whatever. It doesn't really matter. Here's what matters though. So according to Doge, or excuse me, according to myself, I guess, based on what I read, Elon Musk was quoted as saying that Doge uncovered some 1.5 billion USD dollars in government frauds, which is crazy. I think it was some 20% of the entire federal budget, which is crazy, insane. Think about that. Think about all the money. And obviously, here's the controversial statement. Maybe this is going to get me into some trouble. I don't really know. Here's the controversial statement. This is actually a very worthwhile time and usage of your energy if your goal is to defraud and steal. Now, objectively, financially, if your goal is just to take money from other people or other organizations or other places or so on, that's a very, 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 very worthwhile investment of your time and energy. I mean, you can't object to that. Now, just a disclaimer, obviously, I do not recommend or endorse anybody steal. I think there's a price to pay for that, both here on planet Earth and in the spiritual realm. If you steal anything, even if you steal $1, if you steal $1, you're gonna have to pay it back one way or the other. Karma's a real thing. Retribution, both legal and spiritual, is a real thing. I believe in that. So, just so we're crystal clear, do not steal. Don't steal money. But if you want to get money as fast as possible, obviously stealing money without anybody knowing it, such as being part of an NGO and non-governmental organization, is a brilliant way of doing it. Again, I'm not endorsing it. I'm not condoning it. I'm not telling you to do it. In fact, I'm telling you the opposite. Don't steal. I'm not stealing. You shouldn't be stealing either. Take full advantage of the law. Exploit all the legal loopholes that you can within the boundaries of the law, of course. Pay your taxes, whatever. That's fine. Make as much and then make as much money as possible, obviously. So just so we're crystal clear about that. But if you think about it, with respect to stealing, let's talk about that in terms of time and energy. Because if you think about it, that's precisely what the time and energy vampires are doing. They're stealing. They're robbing you blind of your time and energy. They're stealing from you. They're committing theft against you. Think about it. It's blatantly obvious if you just think about it. They're stealing your time, they're stealing your energy, and just like, actually, this is my criticism against, what's that? Oh yeah, it was just some house noise, I guess. This is my criticism against governments and against politics in general, and I'll try my damnedest best not to get sucked into a political rabbit hole, because I don't want this podcast or these videos to be political, but whatever. I think it's pretty obvious where I stand politically. I'm actually a liberalist. Or I'm actually liberalistic, meaning I want the governments to be as small as possible, and I don't want them to interfere with your privacy, because that's precisely what a lot of governments are doing. They're imposing on your privacy. They're surveying you. They're spying on you. They're sticking their long ass nose into your privacy, and they're asking you all of these loaded questions. Aggressive questions as well. And they're making life harder and harder. And there's no wonder that people are starting to to develop a distrust, a genuine distrust in governments. In fact, this is actually something that you can Google for yourself. There's a British woman who called her ex-boyfriend, who allegedly, according to herself, beat her up. She called him a faggot. And she got sentenced to, I think it was some 12 months of community service or some such. But she could theoretically have been sentenced to jail for calling her aggressive, according to her again, ex-boyfriend a faggot. I mean, what kind of a fascist system are we living in? Really? Seriously? And yeah, there's the increased surveillance, the increased spying, and all of that. And yes, I'm gonna stop myself before I get too worked up about this, because I can just feel how my blood is boiling, really, because this is tearing down the trust between people and the governments. Reduce the governments and make it as small as possible. That's all I will say in this regard. However, just like the time and energy vampires are committing theft against you and your time and energy, so are the governments committing theft against you and your privacy. Think about it. It's the same principle. And by extension, that's the same principle as the NGOs who are committing theft against the US government by stealing their money, according to the investigations of Doge. Again, I'm not pointing any fingers here at anybody. I'm not making any accusations. This is just according to hearsay. But think about it. It makes totally sense. And again, this is kind of sick and hypothetical, but if you're a government and you want full and total and utter control over your minions, you of course want to spy on them. If you're an energy vampire and you will want full and total and utter control over your friends, then you steal their time and energy so that they get worked up and they develop this zombie-like state and they don't really care because everything is so bad. I'm not gonna bother protesting. And just like if you're an NGO and you want lots of money and you don't mind whether you steal or you make money in earnest, well, then you defraud the government, right? So these are 3 non-ethical ways, very unethical ways to get what you want. Don't do any of them. In fact, don't steal, because just like the time and energy, why can't I even talk? Because just like the time and energy vampires are stealing your time and energy, like the governments are stealing your privacy, like the NGOs are stealing money from the governments, so should you stop preventing them from stealing from you. Stop preventing them from stealing your time and energy. It's as simple as that. And to help you do that, well, I dish out plenty of advice on my email list. So if you're surrounded by time and energy vampires, TEVs, both human and non-human, because there are non-human TEVs as well, just believe me. If you want to learn more about how to manage your time and energy efficiently, and you want to stop these time and energy vampires from making your life miserable, then consider opting into my email list. The link to do so is below the episode description, wherever you are watching and or listening to this, and I will talk to you there.